Okay, good morning, students. Good morning. So today we are going to discuss narrative style of the short story, the Foghorn. Okay. So in this class today, under this heading, we are going to take four sub-points. Okay. First sub-point is the use of first-person narrative. Okay, first person narrative. Second point is highly poetic and lyrical, and third point is use of descriptive imagery, and the fourth one is the use of symbols. So these are the sub points under the main topic, narrative style of the short story, the Foghorn. There are other points as well which can be discussed in the coming classes. Okay, clear? Yes, sir. Okay. So let us begin our discussion from the beginning. So the Foghorn by Ray Bradbury is one of the finest examples of modern short fiction in which narrative style plays a central role in creating mood, suspense, symbolism, and emotional depth. First published in 1951. Okay. The story combines elements of science fiction, fantasy, loneliness, and tragedy through a simple yet deeply poetic narrative technique. The narrative style of the story is remarkable because Bradbury does not merely tell a tale about a sea monster visiting a lighthouse. Rather, he changes or transforms the narrative into a meditation on loneliness, communication, time, and destruction. Through descriptive imagery, symbolic narration, conversational storytelling, suspenseful pacing, and first-person narration and poetic language, Bradbury creates a haunting atmosphere that remains in the reader's mind long after the story ends. So the first point we are going to discuss, that is the use of first-person narrator. Okay. One of the most striking features of the narrative style in the Foghorn is the use of first-person narrator. The story is narrated by Johnny, a young assistant working with Mike Dunn at the lonely lighthouse. Since the story is told through Johnny's eyes, the reader experiences events directly and emotionally. The first-person point of view creates intimacy and realism. This technique increases suspense because the reader discovers the mystery of the creature gradually. At the very beginning of the story, Johnny says, "That was the lonely season." Johnny says, "That was the lonely season." This simple statement immediately establishes the emotional tone of the narrative. The narrative's voice is reflective and melancholic, preparing the reader for a story filled with isolation and longing. Because Johnny narrates the events personally, the emotions appear real rather than exaggerated. So this is the use of first-person narrator. Purpose is realism and intimacy. Okay? Not any exaggeration. Now let's move to second point, that is the story, the Foghorn, is highly poetic and lyrical. Though we know the story has been written in prose style, but what do we find? It is highly poetic and lyrical. Okay, so Bradbury's narrative style is also highly poetic and lyrical. Unlike ordinary prose, the language in the Foghorn often resembles poetry. When you go and read, you may feel as if you are reading a poetry. So Bradbury uses rhythm, repetition, and sensory imagery to create a musical effect. For example, the sound of the foghorn is described in deeply emotional language. The sound came out of the murk and mist and blew under the world. The sound came out of the murk and mist and blew under the world. This description is not scientific or technical. Instead, the narrative transforms the foghorn into something alive and spiritual. The lighthouse is not considered to be a mere physical thing, but the narrator treats the lighthouse to be alive and spiritual. The phrase blew under the world creates a mysterious atmosphere and suggests that the sound touches ancient memories hidden beneath the sea. Bradbury's narrative style thus elevates a mechanical object into a symbol and emotional communication. So, second point deals with the highly poetic and lyrical style. The story is highly poetic and lyrical style. Okay, and let us move to the third point, that is the use of descriptive imagery. The use of descriptive imagery. So another important aspect of the narrative style is descriptive imagery. So before I move ahead, the first point, is it clear? The use of first person narrator? Okay. And second point is the story is written in highly poetic and lyrical style. Is it clear? Okay, because when you read the story, you may feel as if you are reading a poetry. Okay. Okay, so now let us move to the third point, that is use of descriptive imagery. Clear? Okay. So another important aspect of narrative style is descriptive imagery. So Bradbury paints vivid pictures through words, allowing readers to imagine the sea, fog, darkness, loneliness, and the setting. The lighthouse is not merely physical structure. It becomes almost a living character in the story. When we read, okay, the way it has been described, the lighthouse been described, we start feeling as if the lighthouse is a living creature. Okay, it is not a mere mechanical thing, a physical thing situated in the midst of the sea. Okay, amidst the chaos of the ocean. We can consider this description from the text. The lighthouse tower cut the sky like white bone. This is the description from the text. The lighthouse tower cut the sky like white bone. This metaphor creates an airy visual image. The comparison of the tower to a white bone suggests death, age, and loneliness. Such imagery deepens the Gothic atmosphere of the story. Bradbury repeatedly uses images of darkness, mist, and silence to maintain suspense. The sea appears ancient and mysterious, while the fog hides dangers and secrets. Through close reading, we can see how carefully Bradbury selects words to create emotional impact. So this is what in this point, this what we have discussed, the use of descriptive imagery. Okay. The next point, use of symbols. Okay, use of symbols. The narrative style also depends greatly on symbolism. The foghorn itself is the central symbol in the story. It symbolizes loneliness, the desire for companionship. Macdon explains that the creature comes because the foghorn's cry resembles its own call from millions of years ago. Macdon explains and says, it's the sound of a dinosaur calling. The term dinosaur itself takes immediately to ancient time, no? Okay, during the prehistoric age. It's the sound of a dinosaur calling. This statement is highly symbolic because the foghorn becomes the voice of forgotten history. Because the foghorn becomes voice of forgotten history and internal loneliness. The narrative style allows symbolism to emerge naturally through dialogue and description rather than through direct explanation. We can understand gradually that both the creature and humans are lonely beings, seeking connection, seeking friendship, seeking companionship. Okay, so these are the 4 points we discussed. Now we can add in this class one more point. We have enough time, so one more point we can add, that is role of dialogue. Okay, so one more point we are going to take. This is the role of dialogue in the story. So dialogue plays an important role in shaping the narrative style. Much of the philosophical depth of the story comes through conversations between the narrator and Mike Dunn. Mike Dunn functions almost like a wise storyteller who interprets the mysteries of the nature. His speech is calm, reflective, and imaginative. For example, in the story as we read, he says, "Nobody knows anything about loneliness, not really." So he says, nobody knows anything about loneliness, not really. So this dialogue reveals one of the central themes of the story. Okay, this dialogue reveals one of the central themes of the story. Bradbury uses conversation not only to move the plot forward, but also to explore human emotions and existential ideas. MacDunn's storytelling style adds mystery because he speaks as though he understands hidden truths about the sea and ancient life. So today we have discussed about 5 points. Okay, the first one is use of first person narrator. Second is highly poetic and lyrical style, the use of descriptive imagery, and the use of symbols and the role of dialogue in the story.